The truth hit like a physical blow when I opened my eyes after 6 weeks in darkness. My name is Jonathan Hale, and I'm 35 years old, living temporarily in a small rental while I rebuild what's left of my life. The bank notifications flooded my phone screen that first morning. Transfers, new credit lines, all made while machines kept me breathing. My wife Samantha and her lover Orly Grant had helped themselves to everything I'd spent years building. The photo of them laughing in our kitchen, his hand on her waist, told me everything about their calculated betrayal. My fingers trembled, but I forced them steady. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, documentation, and protecting what remained of my name. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. And make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. The fluorescent kitchen lights cast harsh shadows across our once familiar table. Samantha's smile was too bright, too rehearsed as I settled into my usual chair. The same chair where I'd read the morning paper countless Sundays before, coffee steam curling up while bacon sizzled on the stove. Those mornings felt like scenes from someone else's life now. "Jonathan," her voice pitched higher than normal. "I'm so glad you're feeling better. Do you want some tea? I just bought your favorite." "I need to see the receipts, Sam." I kept my tone level, measured. Her fingers twitched against the kitchen counter, a tell I recognized from 7 years of marriage. "Receipts?" She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "For what? I've been handling everything while you were—" She waved her hand vaguely. "You know, away." Away implies I had a choice. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through the notifications I'd screenshot at the hospital. There are multiple transfers I don't recognize. New credit lines opened in my name. I need to understand what happened. "Oh, those." She busied herself with the kettle, her back to me. "It was all necessary, Jonathan. Bills needed paying. The house needed maintenance. I had your power of attorney. And this?" I placed my phone on the table, screen up, displaying the photo I'd found. Samantha and Orly, caught in what looked like an intimate moment in our kitchen. "Was this necessary too?" She glanced at it, then away too quickly. "That's Orly. He's a friend. He's been helping me manage things. A friend who drinks from my glasses? Who stands that close to my wife? You weren't here." The kettle whistled and she slammed it down on the counter. "You abandoned me, left me to handle everything alone. I was in a coma, Samantha." My voice stayed steady even as my chest tightened. "I was unconscious in a hospital bed. That's not abandonment. You don't understand what it was like." She whirled to face me, color high in her cheeks. "I had no idea if you'd wake up. Bills were piling up. I needed help. You had power of attorney to pay our bills," I cut in. "Not to hire Orly, not to open new credit lines. I did what I had to do to survive." Her voice rose sharply, echoing off the kitchen tiles. "Everything I did was legal. I had the right—" "Legal isn't the same as right." I studied her face, watching the familiar features twist with something I'd never seen before. The way her eyes darted away from mine, how her fingers kept worrying at her sleeve. 7 years of marriage, and I was just now seeing the truth written in every nervous gesture. Her lies had layers, carefully constructed while machines breathed for me. I could see it in the way she kept glancing at her phone and how she positioned herself between me and the stack of mail on the counter. "I need those receipts, Sam." I kept my voice quiet, controlled. "All of them." "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "I don't have to justify myself to you. I kept us afloat while you were gone." I watched her closely, cataloging each defensive shift, each evasive response. The Samantha I thought I knew would have had everything organized, documented, ready to explain. This woman in front of me was a stranger wearing my wife's face, and her lies ran deeper than she was ready to admit. I reached into my laptop bag and pulled out the stack of statements I'd printed at the hospital. My hands were steady as I laid them on the table, one by one, like dealing cards in a game I never wanted to play. Credit line opened February 12th, another March 3rd. Personal loan on April 1st. I tapped each page, all while I was unconscious, all in my name. Samantha lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers. "Those were necessary. The mortgage, the utilities. Our mortgage was current." My voice stayed quiet, controlled. I checked the automatic payments. They never stopped. The utilities were on autopay too. I remembered setting up those payments years ago, determined to build a life where bills were just background noise. So what was necessary about draining $30,000 in new credit? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood, my chair scraping against the tile. You survived by draining me dry. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. Every decision she'd made, every dollar she'd spent, it wasn't about our survival. It was about hers. And maybe Orly's. Where are you going? Her voice pitched higher as I walked to our bedroom. I pulled my old military duffel from the closet, the canvas still stiff with disuse. I'm leaving. Today. You can't just leave. Samantha followed me, hovering in the doorway as I methodically packed clothes, toiletries, my laptop. This is your home. Is it? I zipped the bag with finality. Because from these statements it looks like you've been treating it as your personal ATM. Jonathan, please. Her tone shifted, softened. The same voice she'd used when she wanted a new car or a vacation we couldn't afford. We can work this out. You're not thinking clearly, you just got out of the hospital. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. I shouldered the duffel, grabbed my laptop bag. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the accounts. She stared at me, mouth open, as if she couldn't quite believe I was capable of walking away. Maybe she thought the machines had weakened more than my body. I was almost to the front door when movement caught my eye. The printer in the corner hummed, its status light blinking. A single page sat in the output tray, still warm. I don't know what made me pick it up. Instinct, maybe, or just the habits of a man who'd built his life on attention to detail. The page trembled in my grip as I read it. A transfer authorization to Orly Grant labeled Retainer, dated that morning. And there at the bottom, my signature, a perfect forgery of the way I wrote my name before the coma stole months of my life. Ice spread through my chest, followed by a wave of fury so controlled it felt like clarity. She hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She hadn't just drained our accounts. She'd stolen my identity, forged my name while I lay helpless in a hospital bed. I turned slowly, the paper crushed in my fist. Samantha stood frozen in the hallway, her face draining of color as she registered what I'd found. When my lawyer contacts you, I said, my voice arctic, make sure you mention this too. I drove straight to Colin's place, the forged transfer burning a hole in my laptop bag. He'd texted back immediately when I asked to meet. Come over, coffee's on. That was Colin, steady, prepared, the friend who'd helped me navigate life since basic training. His kitchen smelled like dark roast and reliability. Colin stood at the counter, 2 mugs ready, reading glasses perched on his nose. The sight hit me with a memory. Late nights studying for his bar exam, me quizzing him between maintenance shifts, back when life made sense. You look better than the hospital, he said, sliding a mug my way. But not good. I pulled out my laptop, the statements, and the transfer. Laid them on his worn oak table like evidence at a crime scene. Samantha's been busy while I was out. Colin settled into his chair, adjusted his glasses. Professional mode engaged. He studied each document with methodical precision, making small sounds of acknowledgement. When he reached the transfer, his eyebrows lifted slightly. This is today's date, he said, tapping the paper. Fresh off her printer. Complete with my forged signature. And this photo? He studied the timestamp. During your coma? 3 weeks in. That's Orly Grant in my kitchen drinking from my glasses. The memory of that image still burned. She claims he's a friend. Colin lined up the documents in chronological order. Classic lawyer move. Okay. Walk me through the timeline. I recounted everything. The credit lines, the loans, the steady drain of resources while machines kept me breathing. Colin took notes in his precise handwriting, asking clarifying questions about dates and amounts. She had medical power of attorney, he said finally. Standard hospital procedure for a coma patient. But that's for medical decisions and basic financial maintenance. Not this. He gestured at the paper trail. This is fraud. Can we prove it? We build it step by step. Colin reached for a legal pad. First, we subpoena the hospital records. Every visit log, every proxy authorization, every medical note. Then bank footage showing who accessed your accounts and when. Credit applications, timestamps on transfers. He looked up. It's not just about proving fraud. It's about demonstrating pattern and intent. The knot in my chest loosened slightly. This was what I needed. Not blind rage, but strategic action. Where do we start? You gather everything digital, emails, bank alerts, any communication from before and during your coma. I'll draft the subpoenas Monday morning. He studied me over his glasses. This won't be quick, Jonathan, but we'll make it airtight. I nodded, determination replacing exhaustion. I've got nothing but time. That night, in my temporary apartment, I created folders on my laptop. Financial records, hospital documents, communications, property records. Each click of the mouse felt like loading ammunition. I worked until my eyes burned, scanning statements, downloading records, building a digital fortress of truth. Around midnight, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the organized evidence of betrayal glowing on my screen. My body ached for sleep, but my mind kept churning through dates and documents. Tomorrow, I'd start the hospital records, then the bank footage, then whatever else it took. I thought of Samantha's face when I found the transfer, that flash of fear when she realized I wasn't as weak as she'd assumed. She'd stolen my identity while I was helpless. Now I would rebuild it one document at a time. The exhaustion felt heavy in my bones, but my resolve stayed sharp as a blade. I had a plan now. I had backup. Most importantly, I had proof. The coffee shop sat halfway between our house and my temporary apartment, neutral ground. I'd chosen it carefully, public enough to keep things civil, private enough for truth. I arrived early, settling into a corner booth where I could watch the door. Samantha walked in exactly on time, wearing the soft blue sweater I'd given her last Christmas. My chest tightened at the sight. For a moment, I caught the scent memory of her perfume on that morning, wrapping presents at our kitchen counter. Jonathan. Her voice was gentle as she slid into the booth. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. She'd ordered her usual, vanilla latte with an extra shot. Some habits didn't die even when everything else did. I've been so worried about you. She reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. The doctor said recovery would be difficult. Confusion is normal after what you've been through. I'm not confused, Samantha. You nearly died. Her eyes welled up. Do you know what that was like for me? Sitting there day after day, not knowing if you'd wake up? She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I did the best I could. By emptying our accounts, things were complicated. The medical bills, the house payments. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. We can fix this, Jonathan. Whatever you think happened, we can work through it. Together. I studied her face, the familiar curve of her cheek, the practiced concern in her eyes. How many times had I trusted that look? You're stressed, she continued. The doctors warned me about post-coma trauma. You're seeing threats where there aren't any. My hand went to my laptop bag, retrieving the transfer document. I placed it between our coffee cups, watching her expression shift as she recognized it. This isn't confusion, Samantha. This is fraud. That's not... She started to reach for it, then pulled back. You don't understand. Orly was helping me manage things while you were gone. While I was in a coma, I corrected, and this transfer is dated yesterday. I needed legal advice, for both of us. You forged my signature. Jonathan, please. Her voice softened again, almost a caress. We can get past this. Remember what we built together? All those years? I thought of our kitchen calendar, marked with dinner dates and bill payments. The careful routines we'd created. All of it built on trust I'd thought was solid. The marriage is dead, Samantha. Her expression froze, then hardened into something I'd never seen before. You're making a mistake. No. The mistake was thinking you'd tell the truth. I'll fight you for the house. The gentle tone vanished completely. Every account, every asset. You think you have proof? I have power of attorney. I have witnesses. Orly will testify that you authorized everything. I met her gaze steadily. More lies won't save you. We'll see what the judge believes. She stood, grabbing her purse. Don't come back to the house. I've changed the locks. I watched her walk out, her heels clicking against the tile. The vanilla latte sat untouched, steam still rising. Just like that, negotiation became warfare. My wife of 8 years had declared herself my enemy. The transfer document lay between us like a battle line drawn. I carefully returned it to my laptop bag, evidence of the first shot fired. The preliminary hearing took place in a cramped courtroom that smelled of old wood and anxiety. I sat beside Colin, watching Samantha and her attorney across the aisle. She'd dressed conservatively, navy suit, pearl earrings we'd bought in Hawaii. Even now, she knew exactly which buttons to push. Your Honor, her attorney began, we have documentation proving Mrs. Hale acted within her legal authority. He presented a thick manila folder. This hospital form grants her complete power of attorney during Mr. Hale's incapacitation. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the judge studied the paperwork. I remembered signing something similar years ago, a just-in-case precaution that felt responsible at the time. How could I have known it would become a weapon? The scope appears comprehensive, the judge noted, peering over his glasses. Colin leaned forward. Your Honor, we contest the extent of... Furthermore, Samantha's attorney cut in. We have testimony from Mr. Grant regarding Mr. Hale's direct authorization of certain arrangements. My stomach clenched. Orly. I hadn't seen him enter the courtroom, but there he was, sliding into a back row seat like he belonged there. The same smug half-smile from that kitchen photo. The bailiff passed a document to the judge. A sworn statement, Samantha's attorney explained, detailing a phone conversation where Mr. Hale explicitly approved the financial restructuring. That's impossible, I whispered to Colin. My hands trembled slightly as memories of those hospital days flickered through my mind. The constant hum of machines, the weight of sedation, the darkness that swallowed whole weeks. The judge adjusted his glasses. According to Mr. Grant's statement, you authorized him to assist Mrs. Hale with, quote, whatever arrangements were necessary during your recovery. I was intubated, I said, perhaps too loudly. Colin's hand touched my arm in warning. Your Honor, I physically couldn't speak. The medical records are inconclusive regarding your level of consciousness during the period in question. Samantha's attorney finished smoothly. Mrs. Hale was your wife, making difficult decisions while hoping for your recovery. Mr. Grant's statement simply confirms her proper execution of those duties. I watched the judge nodding, felt the courtroom tilting beneath me. They'd planned this, fabricated evidence that would be my word against theirs, the same way they'd planned everything else while I lay helpless. Your Honor, Colin interjected, we request time to review Mr. Grant's statement and gather contradicting evidence. Granted. We'll reconvene next week. The gavel cracked like a gunshot. I gripped the edge of our table, knuckles white. Across the aisle, Samantha gathered her things, not even glancing my way. But Orly caught my eye as he stood, that same kitchen photo smile playing at his lips. They'd come prepared to strip me of everything, my home, my savings, even my own voice. My jaw clenched until it ached. One lie built on another, a house of cards they thought would bury me. But I'd woken up once already, fought my way back from darkness. This wouldn't be the final word. The fluorescent lights in Colin's office burned my tired eyes as I sorted through another stack of hospital records. 2 weeks had passed since the preliminary hearing, and we'd fallen into a grinding routine. Work during the day, research at night, fueled by coffee and determination. Remember those all-nighters in college, cramming for finals? This felt different. Back then, exhaustion came with a sort of giddy delirium. Now each page carried weight, each document a potential key to unlocking the truth. I think I found something, Colin said, his voice cutting through the quiet. He'd been reviewing security footage from the bank, frame by frame. I pushed aside a pile of medical charts and joined him at his desk. Look at this. He pointed to a timestamp on the screen. 2:15 p.m. March 12th. Samantha stood at a teller window signing papers with practiced confidence. This is when she authorized the second equity line. I leaned closer. That's 2 weeks after the initial power of attorney. Exactly. Colin pulled up another document, the hospital proxy form. The original POA only covered basic financial maintenance, but here, he tapped the screen. She's signing for $100,000 in new debt. My throat tightened. I remembered the pristine stillness of the ICU, machines breathing for me, while Samantha stood in that bank, crossing lines she couldn't uncross. There's more. Colin reached for a manila folder, extracting a single sheet of paper. Remember that nurse who always brought you ice chips? Sandra? I nodded. Sandra had been there through the worst days, gentle hands adjusting tubes and monitors. This is her note from March 15th, the day Orly claims you called to authorize those arrangements. Colin's voice carried controlled triumph. According to Sandra, you were under heavy sedation for a procedure, completely unconscious from 8 a.m. until after midnight. The paper trembled slightly in my hands as I read, patient maintained under continued sedation following bronchial procedure. No verbal response or consciousness observed during shift. One neat paragraph that shattered Orly's entire statement. It's perfect, Colin said quietly. The bank footage proves Samantha exceeded her authority. The nurse's note proves Orly lied under oath. They didn't just bend the rules, they committed fraud. Relief flooded through me, followed by a familiar surge of controlled anger. Not the kind that explodes, but the kind that builds foundations. They'd thought they could bury the truth under paperwork and false testimony. They hadn't counted on patience, on endless nights of digging, on the power of documented facts. I gathered the bank records and the nurse's note, feeling their weight in my hands. Proof. Real, solid proof that would cut through Samantha's manipulations and Orly's lies. Every late night, every burning eye, every cup of bitter coffee had led to this moment. We file first thing tomorrow, Colin said, already reaching for his briefcase. The judge needs to see this immediately. I nodded, gripping the documents that would finally let me reclaim my name, my home, my truth. All those nights reviewing files suddenly felt worth it. You can't forge timestamps. You can't manipulate a nurse's contemporaneous notes. You can't hide from facts that refuse to bend. The deposition room felt smaller than it should have. Maybe it was the oak-paneled walls closing in. Or maybe it was sitting across from Samantha for the first time since discovering the evidence. Her lawyer had arranged her perfectly. Conservative blue blouse, hands folded on the table, expression carefully neutral. But I knew those hands, remembered how they twisted napkins when she lied about small things. Now they were perfectly still, like a prey animal trying not to draw attention. The familiar scent of leather and wood polish reminded me of Sunday dinners at my grandmother's house, where truth wasn't negotiable, and consequences always followed choices. Please state your name for the record, Colin began, his voice steady and professional. Samantha Marie Hale. Her voice carried that practiced softness she'd used at the preliminary hearing. I placed the bank records on the table between us, spreading them like playing cards. Each one bore a timestamp. Each one told its own story of betrayal. Mrs. Hale, I said, surprised by the evenness in my voice. I'm going to read some dates and times. Please confirm if they're accurate. My finger traced the first entry. March 12th, 2:15 p.m. You appeared at First National Bank on Monroe Street to authorize a home equity line of credit for $100,000. Is that correct? Her fingers twitched against the table. I had power of attorney. That's not what I asked. I kept my tone level. Did you appear at First National Bank at that time and date? A pause. Her lawyer shifted in his chair. Yes, she finally said. And on March 15th, I continued, sliding forward the nurse's note. While I was under sedation for a bronchial procedure, you claim I made a phone call to authorize arrangements with Mr. Grant? Her shoulders tensed. You were conscious sometimes. The days blur together. The medical record shows I was fully sedated from 8 a.m. until after midnight. No verbal response or consciousness observed. I tapped the nurse's signature. Sandra Matthews documented this in real time. Are you suggesting she falsified medical records? Samantha's composure cracked. Things were complicated. You don't understand. I understand timestamps, I said quietly. I understand bank cameras. I understand sworn medical records. Each piece of evidence lay before us like stepping stones across her lies. Would you like to explain how I authorized anything while unconscious? Her lawyer leaned forward. Perhaps we should take a break. No, Samantha snapped, color rising in her cheeks. You weren't there. I was alone. I had to make decisions. Decisions like transferring $40,000 to Orly Grant? I placed the transfer receipt between us. That's beyond any reasonable interpretation of power of attorney. The room fell silent. Samantha stared at the paper, her carefully constructed story crumbling under the weight of documented facts. Her fingers found a tissue, twisting it. That old tell I knew so well. I think, her lawyer said stiffly, we should take that break now. But Samantha didn't move. She sat there, staring at the dates and times that exposed every calculation, every betrayal. Her silence filled the room, more damning than any confession she could have made. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her stenotype, waiting. In that moment, I knew we'd won. Not with shouting or accusations, but with simple, unchangeable truth. The courtroom's mahogany panels soaked up every whisper as Judge Harrison adjusted her glasses. My hands remained steady on the table, but my heartbeat wasn't. 3 months of evidence, depositions, and sleepless nights had led to this moment. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Harrison began, her voice carrying that particular weight Judge's master, this court finds significant irregularities in the financial transactions conducted during Mr. Hale's incapacitation. I caught the subtle shift in Samantha's posture from the corner of my eye. The confidence she'd worn like armor throughout the proceedings began to crack. The power of attorney granted to Mrs. Hale was strictly limited in scope, the judge continued. The evidence clearly shows multiple transactions that exceeded these limitations, including unauthorized credit lines and transfers to third parties. She fixed Samantha with a stern look. Furthermore, the attempted validation of these transactions through a claimed phone authorization has been definitively disproven by medical records. My grandmother used to say that truth hits different than lies. It lands solid, like feet on familiar ground. The judge's words had that feeling. Therefore, this court orders the following. All debts incurred through unauthorized transactions are hereby void. The judge's gavel punctuated each point. Full ownership of the property at 1542 Maple Street is awarded to Jonathan Hale. Additionally, Mrs. Hale is ordered to pay restitution of $65,000 from her personal accounts. The sound of paper shuffling filled the pause that followed. I remained still, letting the victory settle into my bones without showing it on my face. This court is adjourned. Rising from my seat, I felt Samantha's glare like ice against my neck. When I turned, her eyes held that particular fury of someone who'd lost control of their own scheme. Beside her, Orly's jaw worked back and forth, his knuckles white around his briefcase handle. Neither spoke. They didn't have to. Their faces said everything about plans destroyed and consequences finally landing where they belonged. Colin squeezed my shoulder as we walked out. Clean sweep, he murmured. The drive home felt different, knowing the house waiting at the end was now indisputably mine. I remembered the day we'd first toured it, how Samantha had loved the bay windows in the kitchen. Now those same windows let in the evening light as I walked through the front door, my footsteps echoing in rooms that felt both familiar and strange. The silence hit differently too. No tension, no underlying current of deception, just honest, empty space. I moved through each room slowly, touching door frames and walls, reclaiming them one by one. The kitchen still held traces of our life together. The scratch on the counter from moving day, the slight dent in the refrigerator door from that time I'd bumped it with a ladder. I sank into the armchair by the window, staring at walls that had witnessed everything, the marriage, the betrayal, and now this strange new beginning. The victory felt heavy in my chest, solid but complex. I'd won back my home and my name, cleared away the fraudulent debts, but the cost of that victory lay scattered around me in the empty rooms and hollow spaces where trust used to live. The last rays of sunset painted long shadows across the hardwood floors. I sat there as darkness crept in, letting myself feel the full weight of the day, the triumph, the loss, and the strange peace that comes with truth finally settled. Later that night, I sat at my desk with my old wristwatch laid out before me. The same watch I'd stripped down and rebuilt during those long nights after leaving the hospital, when sleep felt impossible and I needed something solid to focus on. Each tiny gear and spring had taught me patience all over again. The second hand swept past 12, marking perfect circles in the dim lamplight. No hesitation, no wobble, just clean, mechanical truth. Time measured honestly, the way it should be, the way my life would be from now on. Remember those swap meets where my dad used to hunt for old timepieces? The smell of motor oil and coffee always hung in the air while he'd explain how even broken things could be beautiful if you knew how to fix them. I hadn't understood then. Now, watching my repaired watch count seconds, I finally did. Morning came with its own kind of peace. I'd developed new routines, gentler ones. The coffee maker hummed at exactly 6:15. Steam rose from my mug as I wrote my daily notes at the kitchen counter. Simple things, honest things. Pay electric bill. Call Colin about dinner. No manipulation, no hidden meanings. Just clear intentions written in my own hand. The solitude felt different now. Not the raw emptiness of those first days after discovering Samantha's betrayal, but something cleaner. Like a room where you've finally cleared out all the clutter and can breathe again. The house had become truly mine, not just legally, but in spirit. Every corner held my peace instead of our lies. I opened my desk drawer and took out 2 pieces of paper I kept as reminders. The first, the dismissed legal claim, now stamped with the court's validation of my truth. The second, my hospital bracelet, plastic worn soft from the weeks I'd spent unconscious while others tried to erase me. Not trophies, I didn't need those, but touchstones. Proof that survival comes in steady steps, not sudden explosions. You know what's strange? The sound of a watch ticking used to just be background noise to me. Now it was a metronome, keeping time with my rebuilt life. Each click of the second hand said the same thing. Still here. Still counting. Still true. I picked up my watch and fastened it around my wrist, feeling its familiar weight. The face caught the morning light, crystal clear and honest. I'd learned something about time during all this, how it moves in only one direction, how you can't rewrite the past, but you can build a different future, one steady beat at a time. That's what it all came down to, really. Not the dramatic moments in courtrooms or confrontations, but the quiet persistence of putting yourself back together, of choosing each day to move forward with precision instead of rage, of rebuilding your life the way you'd rebuild a watch, carefully, intentionally, until every piece aligns exactly as it should. I touched the watch face one more time and spoke to the quiet kitchen, voicing the truth I'd earned. I rebuilt my life one steady beat at a time.